July 20th, Monday, 2:25 p.m. And I'm happy to give you some exciting news, share with you some exciting news. I'm now in the process of, recording my audiobook. I have several audiobooks that you can find on YouTube. And I need you, all my fans out there of all my short stories, my books, and my documentaries, to start going on YouTube and sharing and like short stories and your favorite videos from me, my government name, Aarao Cornelio Jr., who also operates as doing business as Don Corleone, for business purposes, for actually quote unquote serious business purposes. That's what the LLC is for. That's what, my pursuit of higher education is for. But again, you guys are fans, some people are not. Okay, so share and like, thumbs up, and it's gonna help me get more views on YouTube. I need you to do that for me, all right? But to everybody else that's been supporting me on Instagram and whatever, my Instagram fans, you guys are great. You're helping me continue going viral. So which is important, because I don't necessarily want to be famous, but I do want people to hear and learn from my stories, and also learn from what I do every single day. I am not just a musician. I'm a grown-ass man, and it helps the narrative of young black boys to see other grown-ass black men who one day they could maybe not necessarily be like, but emulate in some form or fashion. Like, wow, if this guy can actually do this and endure hazing and bullying from people his color or not his color, I could do it. I could actually go to school, maybe not for police officer, but for something, because it's 2026, and on the television it might not look like I can, but he's looking like if he can. So if he can do it, I can. And that's really my goal, to show young black boys that you can actually graduate as a law student or do something that you never thought that you could do. I don't want you guys out there to think that music is the limit or crime is the limit. I want you to think like B.I.G. and sky is the limit, okay? So let's continue on. I got a couple stories here for you. The first one is, this is Dollars Up, okay? Actually, this and this is Dollars Up. It's a story that I wrote back in 2020, I believe. This one, next one right here, is 40/40 Vision. This is Alpha, and this right here is Soft Eyes. Soft Eyes, believe it or not, I began it around 2018, but really I didn't really finish it until 2020, 21, and it's the shortest of my short stories. But long story short, I'm not gonna read it while I'm recording, visually. I'm gonna do the narration audibly, so I'm gonna record it on just a sound recorder, and you're gonna hear it whenever you tune into YouTube and you see me actually use the narration when I add it with a video or a documentary to give you a visuals. So it's another journey. It's really exciting for me to share with you the 8 million stories of me, the miseducation of me, the Diary of a Law Student. I brought you Diary of a Glad Man. It's on YouTube. You can hear it right there. It's on the actual written version is on Word Live. You can download it. If you find me or you see me in passing, I never leave home without a USB port or a flash drive with my short stories on it, or my MP3s of my music on it. Also rap videos that I performed myself. I also usually keep these in my backpack, in case you want some of my short stories, because on the USBs and the flash drives, I also have, in doc file or PDF file, my short stories. And I've been selling my books since really I lived in Miami and I lived in Los Angeles, back and forth. I've been bi-coastal for a real long time. I'm still bi-coastal. I do travel via airplane, via bus, via train. Not so much very often. I don't really foresee myself doing any traveling until I graduate. So I'm not really. I'm mostly staying local these days. Um, but if you ever see me, ask me about my book. I'll tell you what it's about. If you're interested, they're for sale. Um, you know, that's pretty much it. I not only accept cash, I accept credit card. I got the Square chip reader. I got you know, the same thing everybody else has. You can PayPal me, Zelle me, whatever it is. But these are good books, and really the next one, first off, in order, it goes Diary of a Glad Man. You see that it's on YouTube and World Live. Think Like a Cop. It's right on YouTube. It's not on Word Live yet, but eventually it will be. Eventually, my goal is to take these books, and once I, choose an actual name that I'm gonna use, and not just a nickname that I'm tagging the manuscript with for the moment. My goal is to actually have these books available in Barnes and Nobles and many other bookstores, available on hard copy as well as on, you know, whatever they have, which is audio books to buy online. So my goal is, Barnes and Nobles. This is not like something that's going to happen tomorrow, this semester, next year. It's going to happen whatever it's meant to happen, when all the chips are in the right place, when God wants it to happen, when I have the money for it to happen. But I'm in no rush. For now, if you want, a copy, you might get a copy like this. Whatever I can do from Kinko's or FedEx, or whatever I can print up here in the library. But it's important because it helps me as a college student pay for college, and just get by. And so far, I've been able to do that, paying my way through college with the help of people that encourage me because they think that my graduation is a good idea, which it is. But again, available already. You can go online and you could type in my government name, AARAO space CORNELIO Jr. Okay. And next to it, you can type in Diary of a Glad Man, and you can hear my very first short story that I wrote at 11934 Willowbrook Avenue 9059. That was my residence in Los Angeles, California from 2017 to 2019. And yeah, you can also find Think Like a Cop. I also wrote that in Los Angeles, California. Ounces to Pounds, I wrote that on the bus ride back from California, and began writing it somewhere around when I departed from Colorado, and probably finished about somewhere when I was in Ohio. And around there, I began writing Soft Eyes, and I finished that in my house. And that's about it. After that, I began making documentaries, and you can find those whenever you type in my government name, and you type in Crap Game, The Crap Game, THECRAP okay? And then you also can type in The Cousin of Death. I'm pretty sure you know how to spell that grammatically. THE, cousin, COUSIN, of, OFDEATH, death. I think Cousin of Death. No, it's actually Deaf. Cousin of DEF. All right, that's the second one. And then you're gonna Beauty and the Beach. You're gonna get which is a documentary. All those two documentaries that I mentioned are the first two. It goes back in reverse. Crap Game. And it starts out a little tale, a little history about my kindred and where I fall in line as far as from my predecessors to me, and why I decided to go to school. Cousin of Death. It really, it more so deals in my pursuit in music. After I departed from my first attempt to go to school at a Big Ten university. Beauty and the Beach. You're gonna see more so what my life was like, what my experience was like, and living in Miami, working in Miami, pursuing music, but also doing volunteer work for the Jewish Community Services of South Florida. But my relationship with somebody who I called Cookie, that wasn't her real name, but you're gonna see who she really is. When you read the book, but when you see her, you see who I'm talking about, and you see our interactions with each other and how interesting of a relationship it was. But it just really, it goes back and forth from my experiences in Miami Beach, or Miami period, and then my experiences in Los Angeles. So there's going to be some footage where I'm literally in California, and then there's going to be some footage where I'm in Miami. I was flying back and forth a lot. All right. And then, you're going to have the next documentary in line, my government name, and you type in the major, the job, the career, grammatically. And you're going to see a documentary, and most of it is footage of me at Penn State University when I was a student, studying media studies, but also enrolled and registered as a student in classes such as Soch 200 with Sam Richards, what do you call it? Public speaking with Brian Amsden, race and gender with Donna King. All the classes that I was enrolled in. I was full-time student, 4 classes. At that time, when you're watching the major, the job, career, I was a sophomore at Penn State. So if you really want to talk to me and you understand, you're really interested in knowing, what my experience was like as a college student. If you don't want to fabricate and just believe some baloney, I actually, like, credit wise, from the time, like, from my first 2 years actually enrolled as a student at Penn State University, I wasn't a junior like I would have been, because before becoming a student at Penn State University Park State College, I was a student at Penn State at a satellite campus. And at that satellite campus, I successfully completed 2 semesters. So that's 1 whole year. Okay. So the first semester at that satellite campus, I only passed 2 classes. The other 2 I failed. The second semester, I passed 3 classes. Okay. So I was legitimately, when I arrived up to University Park, a sophomore. So as a sophomore, I began taking my classes at the Henderson building. So that was my humanities class. I took Soch 100, which was with Donna King, and then I passed that, and then I took Soch 200 with Sam Richards. Okay, so along with Soch 100, I also took, like, again, humanities class. Soch 100 was in closer to like Carnegie Building. All right. So long story short, by the time it was like my second year at UP, but my third year altogether attending college, I was legitimately a sophomore on his way to becoming a junior. And probably, like, at the beginning of my sophomore year, I was doing pretty good. My GPA was probably like 3, like almost a 3.0. So it wavered. There was a time when it was like 3.1, or pardon me, like 3.2, 3.1, started to slip 2.9, 2.8. And that's whenever I started having a discussion with my academic advisor, and they're like, look, like, your grades are bottoming out. That's not good. Like 3.2 is okay, 3.1 is okay, 3.0. But once you get into the 2 zone, if you know college credits and what that equals to a C minus, close to a D, and you don't want to get any closer to a F. Okay. So I had to make a decision. And my decision was, how can I, because, what happens is you're getting closer to 4 years. And at that time, you're starting to think, how much money am I going to owe the university? And how long is it going to take me to pay that back? So you do what anybody does, right? So, you know what I'm saying? What I did was, at some point, I realized, and it was long after that, when I took a break from school, and I actually was considering I hate, it's funny that sometimes when I explain stuff, I rhyme. I hate that, but it just is what it is when you're a rapper. when I decided to come back, um, I was like, all right, I went into my academic advisor. I'm like, yo, I'm here. I'm ready to go back. I never left the town. You know, I'm working over here. I'm working, and you know, I'm saying, I'm thinking like, yo, I should finish school because I'm serious now. So, you know, they're like, all right, that's cool. So I was like, but yo, my grades. And I was like, you know what? You know, I've been here so long that I haven't graduated yet. I'm gonna try another school. So I did, you know, so but before I left, I was like, how can I actually, like, if I start all over again, will it bring up my grades? And they were like, what do you mean? Like an academic withdrawal or academic renewal? Because an academic withdrawal means, like, to my knowledge, you're pulling out, right? But an academic renewal means you're wiping you're requesting your academic advisor, which they have a power if you authorize them to, via your computer signature, after you verbally by verbatim explain to them this is what you want to do. Okay, you're literally explaining to them that you want them to reset your grades. So they can reset your grades, but the only way that they can do that is if you get an academic withdrawal, or vice versa. The only way you get an academic withdrawal is if you get an academic renewal. So that's basically the way it is. So that was the course of action that I chose to take. And they virtually said, you know, what this is doing, and you know, obviously, you know, because I explained this to you and you asked and you complied, but I just have to say this for the record, so you can't say that I didn't say this to you. And they're going to say this to anybody who, you know, takes this course of action, is it's going to be like you never attended here before. Like, we know, and there's a way where you could literally, you can't undo it, but you could there's a way that you could click a button and it could show your old grades and your time spent at the university, right? But you can't undo it once it's done, to my knowledge. So it's going to be like you never attended the university ever. Like, all the classes are, if you want the bad grades to disappear, what's going to happen is the good grades are also going to disappear. But what that does is that gave me an opportunity that when I actually do decide to return to a traditional university, okay? Like, all the classes that I took as of recently, these past couple of years, via Coursera, via EDX, you know, Allison, you know, Empowerment, whatever, Cops Training Portal, American Eagle, Protective Services Academy, all right? Like, so some of these credits, you know, could transfer very well, like legitimately. They, some of them could. So depending on what school I go to, some of them might accept some of my credits and count it towards my graduation and my future GPA. Some of them may not transfer, but the important part that I try to stress to people, that I encourage to go to EDX and Coursera until you can get your money right, is your transcripts. Transcripts are very important, because what transcripts are your proof of initiative, your proof of ambition, your proof of your willingness to sit in a classroom and dedicate yourself to completing whatever task your professor sets before you, based on what you ask the university to do for you. When the loans come through, they're dispersed, and you set yourself to not missing a class. So it, you know, transcripts are important because they're not just grades. Your transcripts show your curriculum. So some of you out there aren't familiar what curriculum is. So without belittling anybody, I'm going to explain to you what curriculum is. So when you attend college, traditional or non-traditional, conventional or non-conventional, unlike high school, you have a syllabus. So your professor is going to have, point for point, your schedule from the first week to the last week before the semester's over, when the final exam takes place and you hopefully pass it, and then you move on to another professor and it's all over. So first week, what the professor is going to teach you is whatever is highlighted on the syllabus. Week 2, what the professor is going to teach you is whatever the professor highlighted also on the syllabus. Week 3, your first quiz is going to test you based on what you learned in week 2 and week 1, which is going to be highlighted in point 3, okay? When it says quiz on whatever, or first quiz, okay? So it's all, then it's going to go week 4, whatever the professor is going to focus on. So it has the focal points. So, okay, let's say the class is, for example, the stresses, or the management of the stresses of police work, okay? So one part, you have the certificate, okay? But you also have the grade, okay? So mostly on EDX, definitely. Coursera, yeah, definitely. Your grade is not displayed on your certificate like it would be on COPS training portal. Your grade is displayed in your transcripts. So most of these platforms, what they call MOOC, or MOOC, mock, however you want to pronounce it, whatever, these teaching platforms, these teach outs, right? It's going to be in the transcript. But every now and then, like COPS training portal, it's actually, your grade is actually going to be on the certificate in the left side, and on this side is going to show the amount of hours that you spent in class, actively taking part in the course that you either pass or fail. So the transcript, though, is really, especially in Allison Empowerment, is going to go, and this is why, you know what's a crock of you know what, SHIT, and you know what's the real deal, okay? It goes into literal detail. Like, it'll give you a whole page of what you are to learn in class. So if you actually passed and the grade actually reflects what the professor would in person give you, okay? It's not a joke, all right? What they're saying is literally, this is the grade that I would give this student if this student sat in my class, based on my belief that the answers that they typed into the computer are the same answers that they could give you word of mouth if you asked them months after the class is over. I mean, because that's the goal of taking a class, for you to retain, but it's all up to you or me. And that's what some people really fail to explain to other people. Traditional college, conventional college is the same thing as non-conventional college, non-traditional, depending on you. Boot camp, the military, police academy, it doesn't matter. You could go to boot camp, and by the time you're on the battlefield, you totally are not able to display what you learned. You learned it, but did you embrace it? Because now it's time to prove it, right? And it's the same thing as you working in a restaurant. Like, some people, by nature are visual learners, and they have the gift of adaptability. So whether you read the employee handbook or not, like most people, like you work at Burger King or McDonald's. I've worked at Burger King and McDonald's before, and both places you sit in front of a TV screen in the boss's office for 3 hours, and you watch video after video, and you answer as best as you can, No boss expects you to remember all of that. They expect you to do all right, but they also give you and me and anybody who gets that job a handbook. And what's in that handbook? How to make every sandwich that you ask a billion times the next day and the next day until 1 week passes, the next day and the next day until 2 weeks passes. And usually it takes about into the second paycheck for somebody who's a sandwich maker to get down whatever sandwiches they're going to be making. Okay, that's usually what usually just it's adaptability. It's being thrown into the fire, and trial and error is how people usually learn how to make sandwiches, or if you work at a KFC, flip chicken. Okay, it's just the way it is. But that's not what they expect us to do. And not everybody does that. The smart people that really don't want to annoy whoever's standing next to them on the line, the sandwich line, is going to, believe it or not, take time away from their friends, take time from smoking a doob, take time from drinking a beer to really take your job serious and study that employee handbook, because it really, and as much as I'm saying this, I didn't do that. I didn't. Why? Because I have the gift of adaptability, and I didn't mind annoying the people who were next to me either side on any sandwich line I ever stood on. I really didn't mind, because I'm not really going to ask too many questions. I'm really good at being a visual learner. Adaptability saved me, but being a visual learner caused me to not really have to rely more on my adaptability than was necessary. Okay? Not everybody's like that. Some people, they would have had to be placed somewhere like dishwasher or something, because they annoy the person that got more clout, and they would have asked them to be moved, or them to be placed somewhere else, because it's just too annoying for somebody to ask you 500 times, how do you make a Big Mac? Okay. So but it's important that we read the manual over and over again until we get down. It's just a sandwich. It's not like you're reading to figure out where a Cadillac converter goes. You're not studying how to be a mechanic. You're studying how to make sandwiches. But, you can't make somebody prioritize if they don't want to prioritize. You just let them do what they got to do, etc., 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 etc. So that's my history in, being a student, but also moving forward from that point. This is also my present current state, and as an academic, and the reason why my course of action, even at a technical school that some people would totally regard, who cares, kind of a school, really matters, because grades matter. Okay, certificates matter if they transfer. Okay, but you know what matters more than that? Information that's retained. Okay, and the proof is in the transcripts. Okay, so in detail, the transcripts literally explain to the professors who really it's speaking to. The university, they're going to give you credits. The professors, they're going to know the course of how to direct their speech, their lecture, because professors have this ability. For those of you who haven't attended college yet, and it's okay, some of you have, we don't all begin at the same level. We don't all finish at the same level. It's acceptable, okay? But don't ever feel embarrassed because you're the tortoise and you feel like you're not the hare. It's all good, man. The hare doesn't always finish first, okay, or last. Sometimes they don't finish at all. So, transcripts, it explains to the professor, because, okay, so this person is at this level. So whenever I teach them, I can expect them to be able to do this, or when I say to them, I think you're in the wrong class, maybe this is a little too much work for you, I just want to let you know that you could still drop out before the deadline is to drop out and save yourself money and maybe a little face. You know, here's a reality. When you drop out before the deadline, some of the classes may be already taken for you to be on time to select a class to, play catch up in, but some of them actually may still be available. Okay. And, sometimes when you drop out, depending contingently, you still have to pay for it, but it's not like a bad mark against your grade. It doesn't bring down your GPA. So you got to figure it out. I can't hold your hand for everything and explain everything to you. All right. But, that's it. Transcripts matter because, not just professors, but bosses. You know what I mean? When you have a resume, I do grant research. I'm certified in grant research. I'm skilled in grant research. That hits different. To who? Bosses. This is who we should be focused on. This is who I've been focused on. This is why my last job before DoorDash, my last salary job, I got $15.25 an hour. I worked at Chipotle approximately 2.5 years ago, right here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And my beginning wage and leaving wage was $15.25. And I don't know what minimum wage was this year. I mean, what it is this year, because I work at DoorDash. And I don't know what minimum wage was back then, but it damn sure wasn't $15. Okay, so that's a damn good job. And I didn't have to do too much haggling for that. I just presented my certificates and spoke like somebody who's articulate, carried myself well. I was on time for the interview. And my boss says, how does $15.25 sound? And I said, I'll take it. When can you start? I can start today. All right. Be here tomorrow. Started the very next day. The interview was on a Friday. My first day at Chipotle was on a Saturday. Long story short, moving along in the future, transcripts get you jobs. Certificates get you jobs. The certificates and the transcripts that I showed my boss at Chipotle is the reason why she gave me that kind of money. Okay. There was a lot of people that I worked with that they weren't getting that much, So, it just is what it is. But some people close, some people more or less, whatever. But the majority, not really so much. Okay. But it said to the boss that, yeah. Okay. And not just that, my age, like this guy, yeah, he's like 40, I think I was 44 at the time, whatever. Yeah, he deserves that much. Why not? He's a responsible adult. Okay. And, so, but also, all the while, the more time you spend, the more time I spend at a job, you or me, right? The boss is going to continue to be watching you because they don't forget. Okay? A sober-minded boss never forgets. All right? That during your interview, you showed them a certificate that says to them what they don't have to read a whole transcript to know what it encompasses. So randomly at their will, they're going to test you or me a little bit. Nobody needs to tell you this, but for some people, they may need to hear this. It's okay. Not everybody begins at the same place. Not everybody ends at the same place. There was a time in my life where I needed to hear this. No idea is original. All right. Yeah. Well, so, hey, you know what? Like a manager speaking to an assistant manager. Today I'm gonna test Donnie and see if what he presumably has the ability to prove if he could do it. the stresses of management of police thing, I mean, yeah, that helps at this job, but more so, um, this other certificate over here, you know, he should be able to do something like this, right? And you would wonder, like, what would that be? And I've took classes on HVAC, I've took classes on CPR, I've took classes on this, I've took classes on that. Somewhere under the sun of all the classes that I took and certificates and whatever, you know, there's something that, a person can surprise me and say, hey man, I need you to, do this today. You know what I mean? You never know what it is, but until you're asked that, and then whatever. So take pride in what you do, and I take pride in the stories, and this is why I'm going to literally read it, and hopefully you check it out. But Dollars Up, it's a different one. Diary of a Glad Man, again, it just a story about me just realizing how important responsibility and prioritizing is. And not that I didn't know it, it's just, I'm like anybody who was young at my age, really passionate about music. And, there's a time to enjoy your hobby and a time to make it a profession. And then there's a time to learn to be versatile, or you dwell on music and you get the results of a person that just dwells on one thing. Okay. So Think Like a Cop, obviously it's about why I chose to become a cop. Ounces to Pounds, when you look on YouTube and you listen to it, it's not about drug dealing. It has nothing to do with pounds of weed or pounds of drugs or anything like that, or ounces of anything. It more so has to deal with assuming the weight of responsibility and owning up to things that sometimes we may put off in life. Okay. Dollars Up. Finally arrived to this part 37 minutes into the video. You tune in and this is the first one you're going to hear. All right. When you get to it, I don't know when I'm going to be able to finish the audiobooks. The next one is going to be after Dollars Up, 40/40 Vision. Then you're going to hear Alpha. And then last but not least, you're going to hear Soft Eyes. And that's the completion of all 7 of my short stories, which I began writing in Los Angeles in 2018 and finished approximately 2020. That's it. When I began making documentaries in 2021. But Dollars Up. It's a fiction. Okay. So Diary of a Glad Man, based on a true story, my life. Think Like a Cop, based on a true story, my life. Ounces to Pounds, based on a true story, my life. Dollars Up was the first time I challenged myself to write a fictional story. So, there's times in this book, this short story, where I reference experiences in my life. But overall, it's about a guy who's not me. I wasn't the main character in the story. It was about a guy that I could be like if I took my own advice that I explained to my audience in Ounces to Pounds, mostly, and Think Like a Cop. So Diary of a Glad Man, a reflection, and by the time you get to the end to it, what my summary of it was. My general, Diary of a Glad Man, more so a memoir. Think Like a Cop, more so a story, like an autobiography, but not straight like that. Okay. So Ounces to Pounds, same thing, autobiography based on a true story. All right. So but Dollars Up, fiction. Okay. Fictional story. So the main character is a guy who he's a construction worker. At some point, he wanted to be a country singer, but didn't work out, so he became a construction worker. did well in construction, and then eventually he started his own marketing company, telemarketing or something like that. He hires a guy, and as a telemarketer, it begins where he's conducting a group interview, okay, and all these candidates are in the boardroom that he's interviewing, and he's talking to his assistant, and his assistant is, her name is let's see what her name was. I totally forget. It's in the book. Long story short, he talks to Lucille. Okay, there it is. So his assistant's name is Lucille. So, him and Lucille are conducting an interview, and there's this guy, the main character's name is Adam. So in real life, again, Adam doesn't exist. This guy who's the construction worker who retired and started his own telemarketing company. I totally forget his name, but doesn't exist. It's just based on people that, I met in life, but I made up a character. It's not about them. It's more so just a scenario. Okay. So everybody in this story, from Adam to people that don't like Adam. Adam has haters. So he needs a job. He's a college student. The boss hires him, the main character, right? So he gives him a job because he saves his ass one day. Like, the guy comes in for an interview. He sends everybody home. He hears everybody's out, same day. He leaves his work and he calls his wife on this phone, and he goes to meet his wife because they go to spend time at a restaurant with each other and eat a meal and go home, right? On his way, I think, to the garage or outside of the restaurant after the meal, I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. He's telling his wife is like, so how was work, and he explains, well, it was good, I had to interview people. How were they? Oh, there was this one guy, Adam, and there was these other people or whatever. You gonna hire? I don't know. Who you gonna hire? I don't know. So, all right, let's go home. So they're leaving the restaurant, and on their way to a car, here comes a robber. So a strong arm robber, a guy who wants to strong arm rob this guy. He sees a guy who looks like he's well off and with his wife coming from a restaurant that's probably fancy. And, he goes, hey, give me your money, your wallet, or whatever. Out of nowhere, who comes walking up the street? The guy that wanted to get the job, seeing somebody attempting to rob the person that could potentially be his future boss. So, like anybody with a brain, he's like, oh shit, perfect time. I would, God forbid that anything bad happens, but this is my time to prove to this guy that I'm worthy of the job. Now, most people would call the police, right? Like, oh my God, there's somebody trying to rob the guy that, my future boss. But what does he do? He pulls out his laptop and he creeps up on the guy, the bad guy, and he hits him on the back of the head, and the guy is knocked out cold. And then he calls the police. Bad move. So you should never really do that. But again, this is a fictional story. People do whatever is their gumptions. All right. So, his wife says, honey, who's that? Oh my God, it's Adam. It's the guy that I interviewed. Honey, this is Adam. Adam, this is my wife. Hi, Mrs. So-and-so. Thank you. Don't mention it. You know what I mean? How can I repay you? That's cool. You'd have done it for me. Oh, well, honey, you should really give him a job. Well, Adam, because you just saved me, how would you like a job at the telemarketing company? Oh man, duh. That's my, you know what I mean? That's my man. All right, man. Well, you're hired. See you tomorrow. So that's how the story begins. And, you see him struggle. He gets the job. He starts to work there. But one day he pops the question and he says to his boss, man, like, I know I work for you and this is all good. This is going good. This is helping me, you know, secure the bag, maybe get a future education, pay a couple bills, maybe even facilitate a music career. But really, though, really, what I really want you to do. And he starts talking to him like he's a guy that can facilitate his music dreams, because by night, you know, he's a musician. You know, he's a rapper like I was and many of my friends were and still are, right? But by day, he works at this telemarketing company for this guy, right? So he comes to this guy and he propositions him like he's a plug. And he says, man, I want to start a record label, but I don't have any money. So instead of just saving up his checks and doing it on his own, he asks him for a loan, you know, and he's like, you know, will you help me start a record label? So, you know, he thought about it and he's like, that's really not what I do. But, you know, he convinced them into doing it and he eventually agreed. So he helps him start a record label. So I don't like really remember because I haven't really read this story. And it's really funny. Like the only stories that I'm really actually familiar with of my short stories are Think Like a Cop, because I've been trying to convert it into a independent film and find actors to convert it into a play, which is different than a manuscript. The way that it's written, all of my short stories right now, they're all manuscripts that are more so poised to be turned into an independent film. But I created Young Othello's Drama Club so that I could find other thespians so we could perform this in theater. So, in other words, find urban theaters, low budget theaters, schools, whatever you have you, poetry cafes. I know plenty of places where I could perform this. You know what I mean? I didn't start doing this yesterday. I took courses on acting at University of London through Coursera, Colorado Boulder University, NYU Tisch School of Arts, etc. And I've been acting for a real long time. But long story short, Young Othello's Drama Club. First off, when you write a manuscript, there's two different ways that you could do it. You can write it in the form of a manuscript, or you can write it in the form of a screenplay. So if it's something that's going to be used for a play, you write it it's called a screenplay. And what it is it'll say like, so Adam said, or then Adam did, you know, not in the form of a story where there's really, there's no lines. You don't hear, like, you're not reading, there's no lines to read. So like, all right, boom. So if it's a screenplay, it's literally a compiled packet of papers like what I showed you, stack of papers what I showed you, okay? Bound like it's a book. And when you open it, you can see everybody's line. So line 1, let's say it's Adam's turn. You don't say Adam said. Whenever the director or whoever's conducting the play, the playwright, whenever they initiate the play, right, with, you know, the kind of commands that a playwright would give you, okay? Somebody like me, right? You know, you're gonna go out, you know, curtains are gonna open, and on the script it says, you know, curtains open. So whoever's first line, everybody remembers it, and you go out on the stage, and if it's Adam's line, Adam comes out and, you know, says what he says, does what he does. If he's having a discussion with whoever the main character is, let's say it's Lucille will respond with the lines that are on the piece of paper. But you know what your line is because it says Lucille said. But when you're acting it on stage, in your Lucille, you don't say, and Lucille said. You just say what's in quotations, all right? But a manuscript in a movie, it's not written like that. It's just basically a general summary of what happened and not at all what the character said, okay? So, you know, that's why manuscripts, when they're autobiographies or biographies, it's always written in the format like it's a reflection. So when you're hearing the audiobook, whether you're hearing it audio form or you're reading it on Word Live, or you're watching it in the form of, you know, what you see on YouTube. You're gonna see me talking, but I'm talking as if I'm explaining to a friend in the form of a reflection. If I'm reflecting back, yeah, you like, yo, man, hey, man, yo, I really miss Penn State. Yo, really? Like, let's say I'm just talking with somebody, you know, at the bar or at the basketball park or just chilling somewhere at one of my friends' house. Like, yo, man, so what was your experience like at Penn State? Oh, it's all right, man. That's cool. Like, what do you mean it was all right? It's all right. Like, what was it like? You said you went to class. All right. Well, so listen. So when I was in class, and that, you know, basically, if I gave a hour-long summary to one of my friends what my experience was like, then, and you could visualize it with your eyes without watching the major, the job, the career. That's what you would see out of your eyes if I explained it accurately. But if it's a play, you're gonna literally see what it was like if you could actually be there when I was there and see me in the flesh. Same thing as a movie, right? But right now, it's sort of like those short stories are in the phase where, you know, it's being made into a movie. But again, you got to be in my drama club to know this. So perfect time for me to actually, you know, let you know that, you know, those positions are open. You know, anybody's welcome. You don't have to be black to join Young Othello's drama club. You don't have to be Latino to join. Anybody can join. You don't have to be male, female, whoever, whatever. But you do have to be a college student because, you know, you don't have to be at a traditional school. You could be at Coursera or EDX. You know, none of this is going to help us get any better grades. It might help you become a better actor. But, you know, it's something that, you know, we could look back on if you join my group, and you could get to experience what everybody else that's already a member, that's already doing the same thing wherever they are, whatever. So some other people that I know are compiling footage and so, whatever. They send me the footage. Eventually, I'm going to put it all together, and you're going to see what it really is. Because in this modern day and time, just like what people do when they make major movies, unless it's a scene, like the only time you really need characters to be in the same city, the same state, whether you're talking about a low budget film or a blockbuster film that's an Oscar or winning blockbuster film, like Kevin Costner level, you know, Bruce Willis level, that type of thing, Tom Cruise level. Unless it's a scene where the actors are in it together, nobody needs to be in the same city to complete a movie. So in one scene, you might see Bruce Willis running through the Takashi building on Die Hard, all right? But the only scene where him and his wife are going to need, or the actor that played his wife are going to need to be in the same city and state, are whenever they film the scene, whenever they're in together, right? So when you watch the movie and you know the movie, it cuts back and forth from a scene where Bruce Willis is running around trying to figure out what to do, right? And then it goes to the scene where the Russian terrorists are giving orders to the hostages, and they realize that the woman in the red head is John McClane's wife. Where's John McClane? They don't know his name until somebody says, I can help you. I know this guy. I'm good with his wife. And then they start putting two and two together. But in that scene, the only people that are in that scene are the hostages and a couple of the terrorists. Not even all of them. So, you know, if you're really new to how movies are being done, you're going to be under the same assumption that I would, and that is that everybody has to be in the same city the whole entire movie. And that's not what it is. You know what I'm saying? So believe it or not, that scene, that same Takashi building, you know, you can make a mock version. Well, really, you can't make a mock version of it. You're not really gonna do that. The rooftop, yeah, but not the whole entire building. So whenever you see a shot of the whole building, you're looking at the actual building. But when it shoots to the rooftop, that that could be a compilation of him doing the same thing in many different cities. And you're like, why would they do that in so many different cities when they could do it in one city? Bruce Willis has a life, just like, you know, Tom Selleck has a life, just like every actor has a life. Hey man, you know, I got to do other movies. You know what I mean? Like they don't, you know, in 1 year they could be doing 3 different movies. You know what I'm saying? I got to be over here in Nebraska. I'm filming something for George Lucas. I'll be back. When do you need me back? All right, I'll be back here. Where is this at? Canada? All right, I'll be back in Canada whenever Spike Lee needs me to film something for the next Do the Right Thing. So, you know, they got to spend time with their families. They got other stuff to do. They got side businesses. You know, that's the reason why they're millionaires. So that's all right, man. So what I'm gonna need you to this is what the plan is. What's going on, sir, boss? There's a studio over there, movie studio, whatever you call it, all right? Oh, that one, the one over there. Yeah, right there. So someplace where only rich people are, or wherever, you know, the big actors are. There's studios in a lot of places, in Hollywood, here, there, everywhere, every city, every state. Nobody knows. Wherever it's at is wherever it's supposed to be, okay? But, you know, all it takes is, you know, some place where you can make it look like smoke and mirrors, a rooftop. Some people think you need to be outside for this. Not at all, dog. Green screen, technology, make-believe rooftop, okay? So he's filming this with what's called stunt doubles, okay? So when you see the front of Hans, that's really the actor playing Hans. But when he turns his back, that's not the actor playing Hans. It's a stunt double, okay? Same thing with Bruce Willis. When you see him jump off the side of the building, you see his face, that's really Bruce Willis. But when he lands and he kicks in the window a couple times until he breaks through, and you only see the back because he's going this way, that's not Bruce Willis, that's his stunt double, okay? Could be the same city, could be in another city. Whoever it gotta be, it could be any city, okay? Straight like that. So I'm glad that you're finally able to hear this fictional story, because it was a challenge for me to step outside of the box, step outside of my own shoes, and write from a perspective that challenges me to see life from somebody else's perspective, to give somebody else a spotlight. And, you know, it's really cool because, you know, I always wanted to write an action movie or an action story, and every story up to that was kind of building up. So, you know, and now present to you Dollars Up, the name of the manuscript, not the actual book and short story or film. It's just the name of the manuscript. The name of the actual independent film or the book when it comes out is still to be decided upon by me and my co-partners, Young Othello's Drama Club, and my chief editors, and you'll hear about them. But shout out, salute, all right, and special thanks to Bruce George and Beverly Black, who edited this book, Dollars Up. Bruce George edited Think Like a Cop. So whenever you see the book, his name is going to be on it. Respect due, because he edited it. But in the movie or the film, not really, because it's not the same thing as the book. Like, you know, I mean, it might be in the credits, I don't know, but it's politically correct for on the book. Yeah, I you know, that's my man's. So make sure you check out Genius's Common and all the other authors, because there's plenty of people that are Genius's Common partners like I am, and you know, we had the chance to be on that platform, and it brought us to this point where we can now present to you our feature presentation. Dollars Up was definitely inspired by Dame Dash's I think book or movie, Honor Up book. But again, I'm not gonna call it Dollars Up. It's just the name of the man's manuscript. But you know, check it out. Dollars Up, man. Now for your feature presentation.